Hey there, music makers. I'm O'Connor.
And I'm Seth Mosley.
And today we're going to be looking at answering the age-old question, Pro Tools versus Logic Pro.
We have experience making music, a lot of music, on both. We made this record that won a Grammy fully in Logic Pro.
And we made this record in Pro Tools that also won a Grammy.
So hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you want to learn from people who are making hit records every day, not just people who are making YouTube content.
We're always getting asked the question, which is better, Logic Pro or Pro Tools? But we think that's the wrong question. The question you should be asking is, which one is better for me? What is the right DAW for me? And the answer to that will be the one that makes sense to you, what inspires you, and what gets you making music faster.
And we're going to be going through several categories that you might want to consider. Let's start with learning curve. Logic, for instance, I would argue has a much easier learning curve.
Absolutely. Especially if you're already in the Apple ecosystem and you're coming from something maybe like GarageBand, which is installed on all Apple devices right out of the box. It'll be a really smooth transition for you because everything looks the same, it's all in the same places. It's just an upgraded version that has a lot more features for you to dive into. Whereas Pro Tools right out of the box, it's a barren screen when you first open it.
Yeah, for sure. We hear all the time from aspiring songwriters and music producers that Logic just seems a little more user-friendly. Like even things like the user interface. Like talk about the user interface for Logic versus Pro Tools.
Yeah, when you open Logic, there's immediately stuff for you to play with. There's tracks right in there, you can get in, get going. Everything's labeled, it's all very intuitive. Like I said, Pro Tools, you open it up and it's blank. It's up to you to figure out how to even put something in it for the first time, which can be really intimidating. And for a lot of people, it's demotivating and it makes you feel like, oh, I can't do this. And remember, we're trying to find the right DAW for you. And that might mean one that's just intuitive right from the beginning for you, where you don't have to look up a bunch of stuff just to make something start. Even though some of these user interfaces seem intimidating, especially inside of Pro Tools, they both do come with some templates and presets, though, to get you started. They seem to be, pretty usable. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Logic Pro gets you some great ones right out of the gate, but Pro Tools does as well. If you are a hip-hop beat maker and you want to just get going, load up their preset, load up their template. They both have good ones for that. If you're a songwriter who just wants to get going, recording some acoustic and vocals, there's a preset for that. If you want to record a full band, they've got a preset for that as well. So both of them have got you covered in that department. So let's talk about included content. What do you actually get when you're buying Pro Tools or Logic? Now, I've made the argument for years that Logic really you can't beat in terms of just bang for your buck with what you get from plugins to Apple loops to just usable sounding pro level stuff without even having to spend a dime on third-party resources. Logic has that going for it.
Absolutely. You get so much content, it's so incredibly simple to use right out of the bag. Now, Pro Tools, though, in the past few years, has really upped its game. Depending on the subscription model that you use or the tier level that you subscribe to, you can be getting third-party plugins like Melodyne, which is an award-winning, extremely professional vocal editing and tuning software. They also have something called the Inner Circle, where if you're paying an annual subscription price, you're getting access to almost $3,000 worth of high-quality, professional third-party plugins, loops, and different sample packs that you can download and keep. It's a great value, and it's a way to kind of supplement Pro Tools' minimal feature set right out of the box.
Exactly. The one thing I would say is if you're looking to get into the Dolby Atmos ecosystem, Logic just works right out of the bat. They are encouraging people to work in that format because they make those AirPod Maxes where you have the spatial audio. That works right out of the gate, and it does not in the basic versions of Pro Tools.
No, in Pro Tools, not only do you have to have the higher level subscriptions to make Dolby Atmos a possibility, but you also have to purchase a license for the Dolby Atmos production suite or the Dolby Atmos renderer, which is definitely an additional cost that can be sizable.
Yeah, and the last thing I would say on what's included, if you want to do any work on your AirPods that you've already purchased, you might have some of those AirPod Maxes, which you spent a good bit of money on. It works with Logic right out of the gate. Pro Tools, you have to do kind of a third-party workaround.
Yep.
But it's easier in Logic for sure.
For sure. And that kind of leads us into our next point, which is the compatibility with hardware. And this will maybe be a very defining point in your decision-making process, because Logic works only in the Apple ecosystem. Apple owns it, Apple makes it, and it only runs on their hardware.
So that may have just made the decision for you right there. If you're stuck in the PC world and you don't want to switch to Apple, well, there you go. Pro Tools wins in this case.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about price point, because Logic Pro and Pro Tools have very different price points and price structures.
Yeah.
Logic Pro, you can get into flat fee, you own it forever. It's $200 and you own it. There's no ongoing fees, there's no subscription. Pro Tools is another story.
Yes. You can either pay annually because it is a subscription, or you can pay monthly. As I mentioned just a second ago, there are benefits to paying annually. You get a lot of extra perks, but paying every month also gives you a little bit of flexibility. And Pro Tools is a tiered system, so it allows you to kind of match your budget to your needs. You don't have to pay for more than you're going to use, which can be a really nice feature, especially if you're just starting to dip your toes in. Another thing on that point, though, is that both of them do have free trials, and we highly encourage you, because again, it's about what works for you. We encourage you to take advantage of that and actually give them both a shot if that's something that you're capable of doing. The good news is, though, you don't need crazy expensive hardware to run them these days.
Yeah, you can get, honestly, a great computer for around $499, and that's Mac or PC, and you're in the game. Something in that price range will at least get you going. So let's talk about genre and niche. You want to consider what genre are you working in when it comes to selecting Logic Pro versus Pro Tools. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're getting into a genre like country, which is a lot of live instrumentation, you're probably going to be recording a lot of, band stuff, a lot of vocals, a lot of real guitars, real instrumentation, miking up real amps probably sometimes. Pro Tools is going to win the battle there because it is an audio-focused platform. It really is the standard in Nashville when it comes to recording live country music. That just is the truth. Logic Pro, on the other hand, is great if you are trying to do more pop or more programming, where you're not necessarily planning on miking up your acoustic guitar or miking up a drum set. Logic Pro definitely, in my opinion, wins the battle when it comes to being a programmer-friendly app.
Yeah, especially as we talked about before in the included content. If you're a songwriter or you're getting into scoring, there's so many tools just built in natively into Logic that really makes it hard to look somewhere else if that's the style of music you're doing. If you're doing very heavily programmed stuff, or if you need a lot of instruments just built in, Logic is thriving there. And if scoring is something you're into, if you're starting to get creative and making just elaborate music for films or for video games, Logic has made it so simple, especially with its integration into Dolby Atmos and the ability to even export actual sheet music right from there, right from your MIDI notes. It's all available at your fingertips at the one base price, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, so Logic definitely wins the battle of the two in that category in terms of genre versatility.
Yeah.
For sure.
Speaking of working in different genres and different niches, the community surrounding each of these is also dramatically different, where you're going to find help, who you can work with, because music's a very collaborative environment. It's a good thing to take into consideration what your friends or other people you want to make music with are using, because then it's a lot easier to share files. I know I was a Pro Tools user when I met Seth. Seth was a Logic user when we met. And we each started using each other's DAWs just because it made it that much easier for us to work together.
It was very nice of you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It was nice of you for as well. We kind of met in the middle. I liked it.
But the truth is you're going to need help along the way. And it's way easier to get help by picking up the phone and texting a friend or calling a friend than it is trying to get help from Pro Tools or Logic Pro's tech support.
Yeah.
That's not very easy.
No, it's not at all.
So that's something to consider as well. Who else do you know and what are they using?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about plug-in compatibility. This is a question that we've gotten. We don't want to dive too into the weeds here, but just know that if you're wanting to dive into the world of third-party plugins, which you will at some point if you're getting into this world of music production, you're going to want to look at brands like Waves and Universal Audio and Valhalla, and just don't get overwhelmed with it right now, but just know it is something in the future. And when you start to look at that ecosystem, all of those plugins, 99% are compatible with both platforms. It didn't always used to be that way, but thank God they have gotten smart and figured out how to make them both work on Logic and on Pro Tools.
Yeah, pretty much if your computer can handle running it, either of the DAWs will be able to do it as well, which is great. Keeps you from having to really focus too hard when buying. You can just focus on what you want to use and just know that, okay, my computer can run it. It's going to be just fine.
Exactly. Let's talk about the other category of your career or your job ambitions. If you have a desire to work full-time in music, what kind of job does that look like? What is your dream job? Do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a songwriter? Do you want to be a music producer? Or do you want to be an engineer who's more behind the scenes, working in the studios in a town like Nashville? Well, let's just start there. If you're wanting to be an engineer, then Pro Tools is absolutely going to be the route that you should go.
Absolutely. Any studio you walk into here in Nashville, you're going to see Pro Tools because in commercial environments, it's the most widely used, it's the most widely acceptable. Now, if that's not what you're doing, if you're just at home, at the coffee shop, renting a space, working on your own stuff with you and your friends, then that doesn't matter, and that doesn't need to dictate your decision. Again, it's about what works for you and what gets you going quickest. And Logic, with all of its built-in functionality right out of the box, is often a really, really strong starting point. It's great for producers, songwriters, people scoring, pretty much anything right away you can get in and start making music. So that's all for now. Go make something amazing.
If that something amazing includes recording vocals for your next hit and you need help getting your vocals to sound like they do on the radio, then check out this video. Click X's face to see it.